Today's webinar is fast, furious, and fascinating all about tsunamis. My name is Mark Benthian. I'm with the Southern California Earthquake Center, which is headquartered at USC. We have institutions around the world and across California. And we also lead the California's Earthquake Country Alliance, Shakeout Earthquake Drills, and the Tsunamizone website. Earthquake Country Alliance is a statewide organization of private and public and grassroots leaders. We encourage you all to participate if you aren't currently a member. It's free and you'll be able to attend workshops and get our resources and information. You can go to earthquakecountry.org/alliance. And one of the things that Earthquake Country Alliance has created is the 7 steps to earthquake safety. We're not going to talk about this today, except to say that where we say during the disaster, which are the earthquake and in the danger period, not only during the shaking, but immediately afterwards, that's when you might need to be, if you're near the coast, be concerned about the potential for tsunami. And so our step 6 is where you'll find our tsunami information on the Earthquake Country website, and in terms of what to do and when to do it. But we also have a website called Tsunamizoneorg, and that is where you can find a special page just for California. It's also for other regions now too. Links to how to find your zone and Tsunami Preparedness Week information and events, other resources and graphics like shown here and many others. So if you're looking to do some social media this week and share some information, you can go to this page and the resources section and find a lot of great animated images and other graphics that you can use today. The recording of today's presentation will be made available for others who are unable to attend. I see that in the chat, so thanks for that question. And basically, we're going to start right now with a presentation by video from Cynthia Pridmore from the California Geological Survey. And just as, because we've had some more people join just recently, you want to just go back and say that if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat. During this presentation, because it's recorded and Cindy is here, she will be able to reply to your questions during her presentation while we're all watching the recording. And then the next presenter will be Yvette LaDuke from the California Office of Emergency Services. So we will get started, and then lots of information also being added into the chat by my colleague Jason Ballman, also with the Southern California Earthquake Center. So keep an eye on the chat if you aren't yet. Right now I'm going to switch over to the video, and again, during the video you can ask questions via the chat, so don't forget about that, and we'll be reminding you too. So I'm going to share that and press play.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Pridmore with the California Geological Survey, and I'm here today with Yvette LaDuke from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Together, we're going to be presenting on California's tsunami awareness and preparedness. We'd like to thank the Tsunami Zone for inviting us here to speak. The California Geological Survey and the Governor's Office of Emergency Services work together to produce the products of the California Tsunami Program. We also have partners that work with us, including the USC Tsunami Research Center, the Humboldt State University, California State Lands Commission, California Coastal Commission, Laurie Johnson Consultants, AECOM, FEMA, NOAA, and the USGS. So I'll be speaking today on California tsunami awareness, and you'll be seeing me flashing the tsunami.ca.gov web link throughout the talk, where you can find more information about tsunamis and much of the recent, most updated information that we've just recently posted. So does California have tsunamis? You know, we've had more than 150 tsunamis that have been recorded along our coastline since the year 1800. 13 of these have caused damage, and 5 have caused human casualties. In 1964, a tsunami from the magnitude 9.2 earthquake from Alaska came across the ocean and took 12 lives in California. 10 of those were from Crescent City, when 3 waves had come in periodically, and then there was a lull and people went back down to the harbor, and the 4th wave that came in was the largest and claimed the lives of 10 people in that community. In 2011, a tsunami from the magnitude 9.1 earthquake offshore from Japan caused more than $100 million in damage to California, and there was one fatality of a person who was not aware of the dangers of going down to the coast after a tsunami. So what are tsunamis? Where do they come from? What are California's tsunami threats? And I'll be talking a little bit about California's tsunami hazard maps. So what causes a tsunami? Tsunamis are caused by large earthquakes below the ocean floor, but they can also be caused by submarine landslides, volcanic activity, even certain types of weather, asteroids and comets. So most typically, though, they're being caused by a large uplift of the ocean floor along a major fault zone or tectonic plate boundary. When the fault shifts and the plate lifts up the ocean floor, that causes the water above it to lift up, and a wave is generated that moves out in all directions across the ocean. Out in the open ocean, the wave is traveling as fast as 600 miles per hour, but it doesn't have much of an amplitude. It is not a very tall wave when it is out in the open ocean. It's very, very long and perhaps only a few inches high. When that wave approaches a coastline, though, and enters shallower water, it becomes compressed, the speed slows down, and they build in height. A tsunami wave height increases and associated currents intensify as it comes on shore, becoming a threat to life and property. So what does a tsunami look like? In the upper left-hand corner, you see a beautiful curling wave, a nice tube forming. The water's nice and clean, looks very inviting. Is this what we can expect a tsunami to look like off our shore? No, it's not going to look like that. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see about a 200-foot wave crashing onto the Santa Monica Pier. The photo credit for this is from the Fox 911 trailer when this episode came out. It was being advertised. So is this what a tsunami is going to look like for California? No, we're not going to see something that huge right on our beach. In the lower left-hand corner, you see something that sort of looks like a wave, but there's no curling front on it. The water's very dirty. It's very turbulent looking. Is this what a tsunami can look like? Yeah, that's very classic of an oncoming tsunami. And in the last picture, it shows water actually flowing up a river and overcoming the levees and flowing onto the nearby low-lying areas. It's very turbulent. There's a lot of debris in it. Is this what a large tsunami could look like? Yes. We got the idea for this messaging from talking to a local shopkeeper in Newport Beach. Yvette and I were down there to give a talk to the Newport City, and then go on down to San Diego, where we were going to be meeting with kids who were doing a tsunami walk. And we needed to get some jugs of water for our little tsunami demonstrations. We asked the shopkeeper at the 7-Eleven if he knew much about tsunamis, and he said no, but if one ever came to town, it would probably attract a lot of surfers. So we decided to approach that thought. So a regular wave that we're used to come in and go out without extremely flooding higher areas. They run out of energy very, very quickly, and basically when the water's coming on shore, it's flowing in a circle, which provides those good waves to surf on. Tsunami waves, on the other hand, are very dangerous. They're unpredictable, and there's no face to surf on. It is just a turbulent flow that is pushing on land. The waves flood the land like a wall of water, and the water's basically coming in horizontally. So no, tsunami waves are different than regular waves. A tsunami wave can have many surges. Ports and harbors and local offshore areas can have strong unusual events, strong unusual currents. High tides and storm surges can affect the impacts of a tsunami. So if you have a tsunami coming on shore in California, say it's not going to be a very large event. It's going to maybe be about a 3-foot tsunami, which doesn't sound that big of a deal. But if it comes in at high tide and you have a storm surge, you're looking at something much larger that can be pushed onto shore. The first surge is not always the largest, and the danger period can last for several hours or longer. So where do tsunamis come from? To create a large tsunami that can travel across the ocean, you need to uplift a large part of the ocean floor. This can occur along tectonic plate boundaries called subduction zones, where one plate is wedged under another. The dark red triangles on the map in the upper left show the locations of where these subduction zones occur. Subduction zones can be hundreds of miles long and can cause very large tsunamis. I'm going to set this little demo here in motion, and you can see an underlying plate is going under another plate, and you can see the deformation of the upper plate when the fault finally ruptures, or the zone finally ruptures. It uplifts the ocean floor, which uplifts a large column of water. And since these fault zones could be hundreds of miles long, that can generate a very large tsunami. So distant source tsunamis, you're not going to be feeling the earthquake that caused them. So an earthquake in Japan that can send a tsunami over to us, an earthquake in South America coastline that could send a tsunami to us, we're not going to feel that earthquake. That tsunami can arrive in 5 to 13 hours. It takes about 5 hours for a tsunami to come from the Alaska Aleutian area. There will be time for official notifications to go out. So this is where you will get a notification. You might see it on your TV, you might see it on your phone, you might hear it over the radio that a tsunami is approaching our coastline, and check with your local officials for what you should do. Actions that can be taken when a distant source tsunami is arriving. It's going to depend on the size of the event. They may have people partially evacuate the tsunami zone. You might have a full evacuation, or it might just be guidance to say to keep people away from the water. It may not be coming on land, but our coastal waters may be very unpredictable, and we want to keep people away from them. Local source tsunamis can be generated by the sudden movement of underwater along offshore faults or submarine landslides. So in California, we have a lot of, we're all aware of the fault zones that we have on land, and we also have fault zones offshore as well that can cause movement, and some of these faults can actually push up the crust in small blocks and cause local tsunamis. These types of tsunamis are not going to be as huge and devastating as a tsunami coming across the sea, say from Japan, like in 2011, but they can arrive very, very quickly. And that's where the threat comes from, is that we're not going to have hours to respond. It's going to be minutes to maybe up to an hour for some areas to respond to these types of events. Local source tsunamis can also come from underwater landslides. The view on the left shows the landscape offshore of Southern California. You can see the Palos Verdes Hills and the Los Angeles area beyond it. And there's a very faint light black line that shows the edge of the coastline there. Everything outward from that is looking at what the surface of the ocean floor looks like in that region. And over on the center right, you can see a slide block outlined in white. Above that, there's a label for a headscarp, and then below it, there's a shows the limits of a slide, the outflow from that slide block. This type of a coastal landslide, submarine landslide, could potentially generate a tsunami that would come to reach the shoreline very quickly. More research needs to be done on these to determine whether or not they're generated by earthquakes or sea level changes. But when we look at this underwater topography, we can see that there have been several of these types of slide blocks along our coastal areas in California. When a submarine landslide slips, it can cause a tsunami, and that tsunami can reach the shoreline very, very quickly. So up on the north coast of California and south of Cape Mendocino, and that's shown by the dark blue arrow up on the map on the left, the largest distance tsunami threat to most of California will be from a massive earthquake in Alaska and Aleutian Islands region. However, the biggest tsunami threat to our northernmost part of California is a major earthquake on the Cascadia subduction zone. This 700-mile long undersea boundary where tectonic plates are colliding. Scientists have evidence that this subduction zone generated a magnitude 9 earthquake and tsunami in the year 1700. A tsunami like this, since it is so close to shore, could arrive in minutes. A little bit more about the Cascadia subduction zone. If you look on the map to the left, have a big label there, and those red arrows are pointing at that particular line. That is where the one plate is diving underneath the other plate, and this zone goes all the way up to British Columbia. And just as with the other faults that we have, once again, the energy can be stored up over many, many hundreds of years, and then when it's released, it can cause a tsunami that flows not only outward, but towards the coastline. So for local source tsunamis, the felt earthquake is going to be your warning. If you feel an earthquake on the coastline, you need to be aware that a tsunami could be generated. It's very rare, but there is the potential for that. If a tsunami is generated, it can arrive in about 5 to 20 minutes. So this means there's not going to be time for the National Tsunami Warning Center or any of our other emergency managers in California to get on an information statement saying that a tsunami is arriving. There will be no time for an official warning or alert. The action that you should take is that if you're in a tsunami hazard zone and you feel an earthquake, you should go to high ground or go inland. Don't wait to be told, and encourage others to leave with you. And this is very critically important up on our Pacific North Coast, where I've just talked about the Cascadia subduction zone, because that very large tsunami could be arriving within minutes. So these are very rare events, but it's just something that we need the public to be aware of so that you know what to do in the event an earthquake happens. This is a link to our tsunami hazard maps where you can look at the zones at california.ca.gov/map. These maps are prepared to assist the cities and counties in identifying their tsunami hazard for tsunami response planning. In 2009, the state provided tsunami inundation maps, and these are now being updated using higher resolution modeling to assist local agencies in evacuation planning. And what's cool about these new maps, as they're being replaced, is that they're being released as county maps. So a county will get one map with all their tsunami zones on that. The maximum inundation line takes into account both local and distant tsunami sources. And we just had released this week. So we have all the maps that were done in 2009 are now currently being updated. And just this month and this week, we have released a total of about 7 maps. The rest of the state will be worked on this year, and probably by early 2022, the state update of the tsunami zones will be released. So this is a close-up. If you go to our website and you can click on a box and put your address in there, or you can just zoom in on the maps, depending on whether your region has the 2009 maps or has been replaced by the 2021 maps. You'll see either the image on the left or the image on the right. On the image on the left, the tsunami zones are marked in a pink coloration, and these have been used for tsunami planning by local communities. The updated maps on the right, the safe zone is now marked in green, and the hazard zone is now marked in yellow. And one of the differences in the new maps is they're actually, once they calculate what the inundation area would be based on both local and distant tsunamis, that is often moved further out and up to a road or a feature that makes it easier to understand where your evacuation route would be. On the California Geological Survey website at tsunami.ca.gov, each of the new counties, the counties receiving the new updated maps, have their own website page with additional information on there on how to use the maps and how to get more information. Like I said, all the counties will be updated by the end of the year. So official maps are the ones that the state makes that show the areas where you could have potential flooding affected by tsunamis. This includes our 2009s and is being replaced by our 2021 tsunami hazard maps. These maps are used by locals to create locally customized evacuation maps. So cities, counties, tribal areas prepare their own evacuation maps for their own areas. So the new maps are currently available at tsunami.ca.gov. and we'll soon be providing updated information to the My Hazards website as well as the Tsunamizone.org. I encourage you all to check out the tsunami.ca.gov website. Like I said, the new maps are front and center. You can click on that display card in the middle of the screen and get right to the maps. We also have some other really neat story maps that talk about Japan and from the scientific perspective of that particular event in 2011, including details on what happened to Japan and subsequently in California. We also have a great story map video that talks about California tsunami preparedness, and this is great for all ages. If you have kids, teenagers, whoever who are interested in tsunamis, this is a good page to look at as well. So just in summary, tsunamis in California. California has a history of damaging tsunamis, which have resulted in casualties and loss of life, and severe damage to our harbors and coastal areas. The entire California coast is vulnerable, which means everyone should be aware of tsunamis. Large damaging tsunamis are not common events, and if we've seen that we can have them, and even though they're somewhat rare, but they can be catastrophic. So awareness, planning, and preparedness can save lives and keep communities resilient. So I'm going to end here and turn it over to Yvette, but I want to thank you for your time. Please visit tsunami.ca.gov. Please feel free to contact me if you have any more questions, and stay tsunami safe.
Thank you very much, Cindy. We do have some questions for you based on your excellent presentation that were both in the Q&A and the chat. And one question that was asked by Jerry Douglas: when you say very large, is that length or height?
When we say very large, we're usually talking about those subduction zone earthquakes where a large part of the ocean floor has been uplifted and you're generating a wave that has a huge volume of water in it. But when those tsunamis travel out, say when that tsunami, if it's generated in Japan, when it gets to California, it no longer is a huge tsunami when it arrives. So a lot of times we're just describing what that event is offshore, not necessarily how it started.
And what about a source of a tsunami being a major explosion in the ocean? Is that possible too, from dwell parks?
Yeah. There's lots of less, unusual circumstances to cause tsunamis. I mean, a very rare event, an asteroid would cause a huge tsunami, but that's an extremely rare event and not one that we plan for at all, because it's just too out of the ordinary.
I don't think this was answered yet. Cheryl Cashman asks, will all the maps for each zone, once updated, show an offshore fault or subduction zone that would affect that area? Like, would the map show the source?
No, there'll be reports online that will talk about the sources that go into the modeling, and people can look at those sources and see, what are the local sources that they have in their area, and what are the distant sources that affect their area. But the tsunami line is the culmination of gathering the furthest any of those would flow inland. They hit the coastline at a certain size, but they still can flow inland, and so that line is just showing the absolute worst tsunami that is likely to happen, potentially could happen, and gives someone a kind of a safe area to know if they get beyond that, they're beyond anything that is likely to come on land.
Kind of some related questions to that also. For the inundation maps, what's the basis or wave height used to calculate the area mapped as inundated? Imagine that would vary across the state too, right?
Well, we use modeling for tsunami, the different tsunami sources. So there's different models for offshore Alaska, the Aleutian arcs. There's models for how a tsunami would form off of Japan, off of Chile. And all of those models are taken into consideration and what their arrival heights would be right offshore when they're approaching California. And so for any one area, any of those tsunamis might be different in how they flood the coastline. So the modeling for both the distant source tsunamis and the local source tsunamis, the impacts are going to be different all along the coastline. But the reports that are provided that we'll have online that show the different types of sources that go into those areas, you can take a look at them and see, what are they concerned about in our area. But the best thing is to not to worry too much about the sources, but to know what to do if you feel a strong earthquake and you're at the beach, or if you're hearing an announcement coming over different communication lines. Be aware if you live or work or play in a tsunami zone, if you vacation in a tsunami zone, it's a good thing to keep in mind. But remember, these are really rare events. Events that will come all the way up and flood the whole zone are very, very unlikely. I think they have like a 5% chance in 50 years. That's our worst case, is the probability of what's going to reach that furthest flood area. So for emergency response, we just want to make sure that we create a zone that's very safe, and it takes into consideration all the different sources near and far, and that you be aware. The most important part is, since these are rare events, it's just important to know that if you're at the beach and you feel an earthquake, you know what to do. We need to leave the beach. We need to go inland. Even if you don't know where to go, just go a mile inland, and you should be safe from something coming on shore that you felt from an earthquake.
Now, some final questions. Are breakwaters effective at diminishing the impact of a tsunami wave?
No, not really, because that flow is so strong. It's going to go over it. It's going to go around it. As water comes into our ports and harbors, we know that these create critical points of increased flow. And so actually, where the openings are to the breakwaters are some of the most dangerous areas when a tsunami is either coming in or going out. And these events last for many hours. So those hot points are where we have breakwaters, stopping and starting. They're going to be some of the most dangerous areas if someone is out on a boat in that area.
Excellent. Now, here's a really important question from Ann Gaw. With the frequent earthquakes we feel here in Southern California, do you recommend that at any time we feel an earthquake, we check the source of it to find out whether the epicenter is underwater, which could possibly indicate a tsunami?
It's helpful to know, but if you're not in the tsunami zone, you don't need to be thinking in those terms. It's just when you're in the tsunami zone and you feel a strong earthquake, you don't want to wait to check, because if it is a local event, it's going to be arriving within minutes. The
shaking's your natural warning,
right?
To drop cover, hold on during the shaking, and then to get to high ground or inland immediately, right, if you're near the coast. Yeah, right. Don't go checking any website anytime for what to do during an earthquake.
And this is Yvette too, Mark. I'll be covering a lot of this in my presentation as well. So we'll talk a lot about the natural warning signs and the types of notifications.
There are also some questions, a little bit more details about, what will the exact waves be and height in certain places. I think that's what the maps are about, and where they're coming from, like the maximum wave size in Santa Monica Bay. That's all part of the modeling in the current inundation areas there that are based on those heights. So let's go ahead and move on. We'll be, if there's time afterwards, we can come back and answer some of these additional questions. So I'm going to stop sharing, Yvette, and turn it over for you to share your presentation.
Okay. Oops. There we go. And let's see here. Are you seeing my presentation?
Not yet.
Uh-oh. see here. All right, can you see it?
See what happens when you go into presentation mode. Perfect, looks great.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you and welcome everyone. My name is Yvette LaDuke and I'm the Tsunami Planning Coordinator for this state. I work for the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and I work with Cynthia Pridmore and her partners at the California Geological Survey. And wanted to start out a little bit. Cindy just told you a lot about what tsunamis are and how they behave and the potential for them to impact us here in California. So I put this slide up just to provide you some basic information about what a tsunami wave is. A lot of times we think of waves as something we see when we go to the beach on a daily basis and see people out swimming and surfing and enjoying the water. It's important to note that tsunami waves are much different. They're not those types of waves. They're a much more powerful movement of the ocean water. It's actually the entire column of the water from the bottom of the ocean all the way to the top, moving across the ocean. And so they're very strong, and it's more like a surge. And so we really want to caution people and let people know of that important difference and the importance of staying away from the ocean during a tsunami event. Tsunamis do happen here in California. This slide just shows 6 of the different tsunamis that have occurred in the past 12 years. Each of these 6 events put California in either a tsunami advisory or a tsunami warning, which activated our response protocols here in the state of California. We think of tsunamis that come from distant sources, like I showed you on our last slide, as something that's so far away. Do we really need to worry about that here in California? Well, as you watch this video, this is from the 2011 Tohoku event, which originated from an earthquake that happened off the coast of Japan, traveled across the Pacific Ocean, and came here to California. This that you see coming in, this is Santa Cruz Harbor. This is about 3 hours after the first tsunami waves arrived here in California, and you can see the impact that it's having there in the harbor area. We were fortunate during this event that it happened at low tide. Otherwise, some of these people might have gotten a little bit wet up there. It's really important that you stay away from the water. This is a good video to show what not to do. We don't want people going down by the water and taking photos, because those waves could have been much more dangerous had it been during different tidal conditions. So how do we know a tsunami is coming, especially if it's coming from a place far away like Japan? As you see in this photo, this is a photo of what we call a DART buoy, or a deep ocean assessment and reporting of tsunami buoy. The National Weather Service has installed buoys that look just like this around the rim of the Pacific Ocean. So when an event occurs, say off the coast of Japan, these buoys are equipped with sensors that extend all the way to the ocean floor. Once an earthquake in the ocean occurs, and that column of water, Cindy showed you that graphic where the subduction zone was pushing up some of the land underneath the ocean floor, which caused that displacement of water, and it changes that pressure. So once that sensor notes that pressure, it sends notification up to the buoy, which then transmits that information to the National Tsunami Warning Center, which is located in Palmer, Alaska. Then as that tsunami starts to travel across the ocean, it travels about the speed of a jet plane, so about 500 miles per hour. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much time we have from when an event like that happens far away to when it impacts us here on our shores. So as that tsunami moves, it's hitting a different buoy as it goes across the ocean. Each of those buoys then is able to send data to the National Tsunami Warning Center. They're able to collect that data and determine what types of impacts we're going to have here in California. So if it's a large enough event, that's going to put us into what we call a tsunami warning, which is a worst case scenario for a tsunami. And it means our impacts on land are going to be typically above 3 feet. The National Tsunami Warning Center will issue a wireless emergency alert. That's an automatic alert notification that will go to anyone who has a cell phone within the tsunami area along the coast. We've set up polygons along the coast, and that gives us the capability to notify anybody within that area that there is a tsunami coming. It will be a very general message. It will say, an event has occurred, there's a tsunami warning for your area, please move inland and to high ground. So as that's happening, there's also official notifications going to our local weather service offices here in California. We have 4 of them. They're located in Eureka, Monterey, LA Oxnard area, and San Diego. If the event is not large enough for us to be put into a tsunami warning, it may be a smaller event called a tsunami advisory, which may impact areas closer to the shore, mostly beaches and harbor areas. So then we have local notification protocols that will go into place to notify people in those areas. Other less severe events will be just issued with either a tsunami watch that we're gathering more information, or a tsunami information statement that an event did occur and that there's no impact expected for California. So for the events that are an advisory or warning, are bigger, more potentially harmful events, the notification from the National Tsunami Warning Center automatically goes to CalUS and the National Weather Service offices that I mentioned. So you see on this chart, it's kind of a simultaneous process happening. The Weather Service offices will issue will activate the emergency alert system, which is something that you see on your televisions when you get those tests that come up. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system, and they provide you information. They also broadcast that out on radio, and there are different jurisdictions along our coast that have tsunami sirens. Those can also be activated to notify people that there is a tsunami event going on and provide information as to what to do. CalOES will also notify our county partners and so that they can activate their local protocols as well. It's important to note that if you do receive a wireless emergency alert, like I said before, that's going to be a very general statement. It's important then to tune in to your local authorities to get additional information that you need in order to evacuate safely. So as Cindy mentioned, there are some natural warning signs for tsunamis that occur near our coast here in California. If you are at the beach and you feel strong shaking, or you see the water receding that is exposing the sea floor and it's something unusual that you don't see, or you hear an unusual sound out in the ocean, maybe possibly a roaring sound that sounds unusual to you, once you feel strong shaking, stop. If you do feel shaking, we want you to immediately grab your things, your family members, and exit the beach area and walk inland as far as you can. Don't wait for any official notifications. Many times when we have near source events, they happen so quickly, we need you to evacuate right away, and there's not time for you to receive an official warning. Once you do evacuate the area and you get to a safe location, then check your phones, listen to a radio, turn on a TV if you can, and see if you can get some additional information. Usually there are only minutes for a tsunami to arrive if it is a local source event. So it's important, once you feel the shaking, stop. And we don't want people to walk if there is strong shaking, because we don't want you to fall and hurt yourself. But as immediately as you can, once that shaking stops, we do again want you to immediately leave the area, go inland as far as you can. The preferable method is walking, and then tune in to get additional information from your local authorities. So this just illustrates, again, even if you're on the beach, we do want you to kind of do your drops so that you don't fall down and hurt yourself. And then immediately once that shaking stops, go to high ground. And then the other important message is to stay there. And as Cindy mentioned, tsunamis can arrive for hours, sometimes even a couple days. And so even if you see that first wave or two come in and they look strong and then they leave, maybe even for a little while, we don't want you to think it's safe and okay to return. We really want you to wait, listen to your local officials, and wait until they tell you that it's okay to return to the area. So how do you know if you're in the tsunami zone? Maybe you live close to the beach or work there or spend a lot of your free time there visiting. Maybe your kids go to a school that's really close to the beach. How do you know if you're in an area that you need to be concerned about? There's a few different ways that you can find out. Two of the ways are on the screen now. One is on our CalOES website. You can type in myhazards.caloes.ca.gov, type in your address, and it will actually pop up all of the potential hazards that impact you at that address. So you can type in your work address, your kid's school address, maybe your favorite restaurant if you're curious, or any other activity that you participate in near the coast. You can put in that address and find out what the hazards are for that location. As Cindy mentioned, we also have our tsunami.ca.gov website, and that's our California Geological Survey partners. And all of the new tsunami maps that are being developed are available on that website. We encourage you all to go on that website and look at the new tsunami zones, and you can see exactly what that inundation looks like in the area where you are. When you're actually at the beach or in the coastal areas, you can take a look around and you'll see many different types of signage. We actually have tsunami signage in most of our coastal areas of California. The different types of signs convey different types of information to you. So if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you see a tsunami hazard zone sign. This sign is just letting you know that you are in a tsunami hazard area, and that if you feel strong shaking, go to high ground or inland. Now you may think, if I'm at the beach and I feel the strong shaking, how do I know if it's an earthquake that's out in the ocean or if it's on shore? Well, if you feel strong shaking, we want your immediate response to be to evacuate the area. And again, once you get out of the area, then tune into your phone or TV or radio if you can to listen for more information. The National Tsunami Warning Center will issue a tsunami information statement for any earthquake that occurs where people could potentially feel shaking at the coast. So if you're in California and an earthquake happens on shore, maybe over in Pasadena or somewhere further inland, but there is a possibility that someone at the beach could feel shaking, they will issue an information statement to let you know this earthquake occurred, but there's no potential tsunami as a result. So you will receive information, but again, we want you to evacuate before you get that information, just because of the potential for it to arrive before we can get the information out to you. Additional signage that you'll see is if you're entering or leaving a hazard zone. This is important for you to know, because once you pass that sign that says leaving a tsunami hazard zone, then you know you're on a way to a safer location, and at that point is when you can then tune in and get your additional official information. Another sign, if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, is the tsunami evacuation route sign accompanied with an arrow. This is the path that local officials have determined that they want people to use to evacuate the area. This is an area where you'll see officials guiding people to a safer location where you can then obtain additional information. It's important to follow these routes because these are the routes that officials have determined are the safest and best routes for people to evacuate. An additional form of signage we have at many locations throughout our coast, and we continue to add more, are Tsunami Kiosks. These kiosks are installed at many beach locations. You can see the full kiosk on the left and a close-up of a map on the right. And so these maps actually provide you with information for where you are specifically on the beach. So you can see the little tab that says you are here. So it shows you where you are looking at that kiosk, and it provides you with the route to get out of the area. So that's something you could take a picture of on your phone so that you can take a look at it as you're walking if you need to get out of the area, so that you can remember and know that you're going the right way. It also contains additional information on how to sign up to receive local alert messaging. So what can you do to get prepared? The first thing that's really important is to be informed, which all of you have taken that first initial step today by joining this webinar. So thank you for doing that. Another step is to be prepared. Being prepared is learning about your area, learning about the different hazards that exist where you frequently are within your community, whether it be at work, school, home, where your friends live, where your family lives. The third step that you can take is a really important step, and that is to sign up for local emergency notifications. If you're not sure how to do that, in many areas you can actually just Google it and find out how to sign up. Also, a lot of cities and counties put out a lot of information during this week, which is Tsunami Preparedness Week, on how to sign up for notifications. So be watching for that on either local radio stations, local television stations, and various other ways that they post information throughout your community. So it's important to sign up for those, again, because that's how you will be receiving information on what your local officials want you to do specifically in order to be safe from any type of emergency that's happening where you live. Listen to their instructions, make sure you follow what they want you to do, because that will be the best way for you and your family and friends to be safe, and also to receive any follow-on information that comes out during a tsunami event. Walking the evacuation route, that's something really important to do if you do live or frequently are in a tsunami hazard area, because that will develop what we call muscle memory. And a lot of people learn by doing. And so then when it comes to an emergency situation, and many people tend to panic and get flustered and forget, what am I supposed to do? But if you've walked this route many times, it becomes more natural to you. It becomes more comfortable, and you just kind of remember, oh yeah, I remember doing the tsunami walk. I remember which way I need to go. And it's something that you can even do now during COVID, where a lot of us can't get together and do a lot of the emergency preparedness events that we're used to doing or participating in. You can do a tsunami walk yourself or with your close family members that live with you, and just practice walking the route yourselves, just to remind yourselves of what you need to do if a tsunami occurs. If you're outside the tsunami hazard zone, and this is really important to remember, if you take a look at all the maps and you say, yeah, my house is outside that zone, if you do still receive an alert notification, the important thing to remember is, I'm outside of the zone. If I don't need to evacuate, do not evacuate. And a lot of your local officials will be able to provide you the specific information you need as to whether or not you need to evacuate. And if you do need to evacuate, where to go for that. If you don't need to evacuate, again, please stay where you are so that you're not impeding the possibility for anybody else who is in that hazard zone to be able to get out of harm's way. So the state participates in a lot of tsunami preparedness events. This is myself and a couple other of our state tsunami program partners doing various different types of preparedness events, so that we can provide information to all of you on what tsunamis are and how to prepare for them and how to be safe if one does occur in your area. Things that you can do specifically, like I said, you can participate in a tsunami walk. In the middle of the screen, you can see an evacuation kit list. So these are just some items that can get you started in developing your kit. You may want to add some additional things that you may personally need, but this is just something to get you started. We put these kind of in a little bookmark size thing that you can throw in your purse or your wallet. So each time you go to the store, maybe you can grab one of these things and just slowly build your kit over time. And then on the left is just kind of a photo of a tsunami bag we have. So you can just use something like that that's easy to grab and go should you need to leave your home. So this is a screenshot of the Tsunamizoneorg website. This is a great website to go to. You can register. You see in the upper left corner in that blue stripe where it says register here. You can register your events. If you want to do something for Tsunami Preparedness Week this week, you say, hey, I'm going to practice with my family. We're going to do an evacuation drill. go on here and let people know. That way your friends and neighbors can see what you're doing and other folks can see what you're doing. And especially if you have other types of events planned, it's good to put them on here because other people can see what you're doing and maybe get ideas on what they can do in their communities or their homes as well. So it's great to share with others and learn what others are doing that you can maybe incorporate yourself. So as of Friday, we had almost 130,000 people registered just here in California that had put on the site that they were doing tsunami events. And if you look in the lower left corner of the screen and the light blue stripe, you see 520,000 participants registered globally. So that's a really great number of people, and we're really happy that people are really doing things to get prepared for tsunamis. So this slide just shows various different websites and the different types of information that are involved. The great thing is you can go to the Tsunamizoneorg website and there's links to, I think, pretty much all of these other websites on the Tsunamizoneorg website. So if you can't capture these on the screen or you forget any of these other websites, just remember Tsunamizoneorg and you can link to pretty much any information that you need on tsunamis from that website. And so this is my contact information, and again, Cindy's contact information. If you have questions for us or need to know anything else, we encourage you to reach out to us anytime. We'll be glad to answer your questions. And as we're able to participate in local events again, we're always happy to come out and do presentations and provide information to those that are in your community. So.
Thank you very much, Yvette. And we'll leave your slide up here now. I think it's a good, because people are writing down your contact information. One of the things I wanted to add about tsunami zone registration, it's not just for individuals, it can be for a business or a school or other organization. In fact, a lot of the registrations do come into those types of groups that are planning activities for all the employees, or and even if you're not all together now, that is possible. You can have an internal event, a webinar, or you can share the links to this recording once it's available with all your employees, and then share that you've done that. The being seen by others in your community is only at your options. Also wanted to point out, you can, if you want to register and be counted, but not necessarily be listed on the website, you have that control over that when you register. We have lots of questions as we finish here today. A few questions, just to repeat again, maybe Yvette. How do you define high ground, and how do you define how far inland to go?
So that's really going to differ for the different tsunami events that occur. So if you look at the inundation maps that are on the tsunami.ca.gov website, those are the maximum possible events. So that's only going to be for like our worst case scenario events. Most of the tsunamis are not that large, so you're not even going to need to go that far inland to get away from the dangerous area. And so that's why I go back to making sure that you are connected to your local officials. Make sure that you sign up to receive local alerting messages, because when an event does occur and they do need to do evacuations, they're going to come on to those alerting platforms and send you information and let you know how far inland the tsunami is going to go, because we do have that information. To back up just a little bit, we're able, once we get that data that I mentioned from the National Tsunami Warning Center, at the state level, we partner with our National Weather Service partners, and we can run a calculation to determine what the inundation is going to look like for that specific event. And we then share that with our coastal tsunami program partners at the county and city level, so that they know how far inland that particular tsunami is going to go, and then they can notify the public and let them know, hey, for this one, it's a smaller event. We only need to evacuate maybe our harbor area and the beaches. Yeah. And so then people living inland don't even need to evacuate anywhere, or maybe it is a little worse and we may need to evacuate inland further. So it's really important to be connected to your local officials so that you get that information on how far inland you need to go or how far to high ground you need to go for that specific event.
Thank you. There's a number of questions about driving and freeways, like the one that might get impacted by a tsunami. Maybe even when you're driving, you don't even notice the earthquake always. Though I think if it were big enough to really cause a tsunami, you probably would notice it even while driving.
Maybe if it was a local source.
Yeah, for a local source, certainly that. And otherwise, you'd be hopefully getting the notification somehow that, again, through radio, if you're listening to the radio.
Yes, but if you're not in your car, if you are on the beach, we do recommend that you walk out if at all possible, just because if we have a lot of people getting in their cars and trying to evacuate, that's when we could kind of compound the situation. And it would be harder for people to really get out of harm's way that way. So we just want people to walk out of the area if at all possible. That's the preferred method of evacuation.
Cindy, you had took a question from the Q&A to answer live. It was about survival advice if you get caught in a tsunami surge. You had marked that you were going to answer that live. Did you? Maybe she's on mute. Yvette, what do you do if you get caught in a tsunami surge?
So what we want you to be aware of is if for a distant source tsunami, if you receive that notification, we want you to leave right away, because the thing to remember is those tsunami surges are much more powerful than regular ocean waves. And it does not take very much water for you to get knocked off your feet. And they're just that powerful. So we don't want you waiting there. For a local source tsunami, that's why we tell you the minute you feel shaking, once that strong shaking is done, immediately start moving inland and to high ground if possible, because the strong surge of that water is too strong for you to walk through. I think a lot of people have seen the videos of what happened over in Thailand when they had that large tsunami over there. We don't really have the potential for that strong of a tsunami to happen here, but we can have dangerous tsunamis that do come on land. And so it's really important to not try to go into the water or go near the water. They're just extremely powerful. So it's important to stay as far away from that coastal area if a tsunami is coming if possible.
Thank you, Yvette, and thank you very much both to you and also to Cynthia Pridmore for your presentations today. Hopefully everybody got your addresses, but you can also email us at info@tsunamizone.org. If you have any further questions, I know we weren't able to get to all of them here in the time, but we will follow up and make sure that you get your questions answered. A lot of websites listed here today. Tsunamizone.org will link you to both all the state websites that were mentioned, as well as tsunami.ca.gov. With that, we will end our webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great day.